Hello everyone, back again with movie and tune recap. Today, I'm going to explain a Canadian slasher horror film from 2024, titled In a Violent Nature. Spoilers ahead, so watch out and take care. The movie starts with a group of friends on a camping trip in the woods. They find a locket hanging on a pole in the ruins of a burned-out fire tower, and despite objections from the others, one of them, Troy, takes the locket. Unbeknownst to Troy, removing the locket resurrects a supernatural killer named Johnny, whose body was buried with the pole thrust through him, and whose spirit was tied to the site by the locket. Johnny, now enraged, starts searching for the locket and roams through the woods. He pauses at the sight of a rotting fox corpse and overhears an argument between two men, one of whom set the traps that killed the fox. After the other man drives away, Johnny walks to a nearby farmhouse and enters unnoticed. Mistaking another locket for his own, Johnny has a flashback that shows the locket was given to him by his father as a memento of Johnny's dead mother. When the homeowner, Chuck, returns, he is horrified to see Johnny and runs away. In the woods, Chuck gets his leg caught in one of his own bear traps, and is brutally killed by Johnny. Later that night, Johnny hears a car in the distance and goes after it. He secretly approached the group of friends sitting around a campfire, and one of them, Aaron, tells a ghost story about Johnny, and the White Pine slaughter to the others, Colt, Evan, Aurora, Brody, Chris, and Troy. Decades ago, Johnny, the developmentally delayed son of a local merchant, was tricked by a group of lumberjacks into climbing the fire tower for a bag of toys. When he reached the top, one of the lumberjacks scared him, causing Johnny to fall to his death. The fall was deemed accidental, and the lumberjacks put a fireman's mask on Johnny to make it look as if he had been playing, and fell on his own. Johnny's dad confronted the lumberjacks but was also killed, and according to urban legend, a week later, everyone in the logging camp was found dead. A witness reports seeing a man in a mask, leading some to believe that Johnny's spirit had somehow sought revenge. After telling the story, Aurora tries to make fun of Aaron, insisting that his tale is just made up. Before heading back to their cabin, the friends take a group photo, unaware that Johnny is watching them from the woods. Later, Aaron sneaks out of the cabin to urinate, unaware that Johnny is following him. While urinating behind a tree, Aaron is suddenly attacked and killed by Johnny with a draw knife. After sawing off this top of Aaron's head, Johnny drags his remains to a ranger station. There, Johnny discovered a vintage fireman's mask and drag hooks from a historical display, along with a hatchet. He uses Aaron's corpse to break the glass, retrieves the mask, the drag hooks and hatchet, and puts on the mask before leaving the station. The next morning, Johnny comes across Aurora and Brody on a lake dock. Brody gets into the water to swim and Johnny places the hatchet on a log before submerging into the water. Brody tries to persuade Aurora to join her in the water, but she leaves to practice yoga instead. As Brody swims alone in the lake, Johnny submerges himself in the water and drowns her to death, before leaving her corpse to float. Emerging from the water, Johnny goes after Aurora, who is practicing yoga near a cliffside. Aurora, thinking it's Brody approaching, starts talking but is shocked to see Johnny. As she stands at the cliff's edge, Johnny pierces his hand through her stomach, and brutally kills her with his drag hooks before throwing her mutilated body off the cliff. Johnny retrieves the hatchet and walks into the woods, where he comes across Troy, Colt, and Evan arguing over car keys and their missing friends. One of them throws his keys, which Johnny picks up before sitting behind a tree. He takes off his mask, revealing his true face, and begins playing with an attached toy car. Troy starts looking for the keys, unaware that Johnny is sitting behind a tree. When he finds the hatchet on the ground, he gets spooked and returns to tell his friends. As the argument escalates, Chris and Troy drive off to the ranger station on an ATV, leaving Colt and Evan. After Colt returns to the cabin, Johnny rigs a car horn to lure Colt outside, and then circles around the cabin. His plan works, and Colt comes out to check the car, and Johnny launches a surprise attacks on him from behind, hatcheting Colt's leg, and before Johnny can finish him off, Evan appears and shoots him to the ground with a shotgun. Evan tries to help Colt limp away into the woods, but Johnny recovers, and throws the hatchet into the back of Evan's head, killing him. Johnny then approached Colt, who is trying to crawl away, and smash his head with a large rock. Johnny becomes frustrated to learn that the locket, which he previously saw Colt holding at the campfire, is no longer in Colt's possession. Meanwhile, Chris and Troy, having discovered Aaron's mutilated body at the ranger station, return to the cabin to warn their friends about a killer on the loose. Johnny spots the locket on Chris' neck, and proceed to kill her by throwing the hatchet at her, but Troy alerts Chris just in time, and both of them flee into the woods on the ATV. By nightfall, Chris and Troy make it back to the ranger station, so is Johnny, who is approaching them. The ranger explains to Chris and Troy that the locket, which Chris is wearing, is what keeps Johnny's soul at rest. He warns them that Johnny will kill them all because the locket was removed from his gravesite. The ranger further reveals that his father killed Johnny at the conclusion of the original massacre, and the ranger himself killed Johnny again when he returned 10 years ago. As Johnny charges at them, the ranger momentarily subdues him with a shotgun. Troy hesitates when tasked with restraining Johnny's body with chains, allowing the monster to recover, and wrestle the ranger's gun away by crushing his hand. Chris and Troy flee as Johnny snaps the ranger's spine to immobilize him before dragging him into the cabin. Using a log-splitting machine, Johnny mutilates the ranger's body before decapitating him while he is still conscious. In the woods, Troy and Chris devise a plan to distract Johnny, and trap him at the gravesite where they took the locket, unaware that Johnny is watching them. Troy appears behind Johnny to distract him but is killed with the hatchet, leaving Chris in shock. As Johnny begins to dismember Troy's body, Chris leaves Johnny's locket hanging on a gas canister, and flees into the woods. While running, Chris accidentally injured her leg but managed to limp to a nearby road by dawn. A woman in a pickup truck stops, and offers to drive Chris to a hospital. To reassure Chris, the woman recounts how her brother, a game warden, survived a bear mauling in the same woods decades ago. The woman noticed that Chris' bleeding had worsened and stops the truck, insisting on applying a tourniquet to the injured leg. Terrified, Chris begs her to keep driving, and while the woman works on her wound, Chris peers into the woods, anxiously waiting for something to appear. The camera cuts and pans to show that the locket is no longer on the gas canister, indicating that Johnny has taken it and returned to rest. Okay guys, that's all the recap about In a Violent Nature from 2024. Thanks for watching, see you again in the next video.